In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use scripting with link conditions, and specifically we're going to focus on condensing our conditions from say 4 or possibly more conditions into one condition with the script. And so with that said, let's get started. All right, so the easiest way to show this is I just had a field of vision here. I have 4 field of visions, left, right, up, and down on this object. If we playtest, we can see that he has 4 field of visions. And now in our checks, when you're checking for a field of vision, you can only check for one field of vision at a time. And so in order, if you had like 4 field of visions that could all go to the same action, then you'd have to set it up like this. You'd have to say if left was hit by the player, and then you have to say or if right was hit by the player, and then you have to go or down or up as well. And then on the way out, let's say that you were exiting the FOV, you wanted it to go back to no filter in this case, then you would have to have all of them as well. They would have to be not equal to, meaning the opposite value, and then they would have to be ands on the way out. And so with something like that, you can see that it works as soon as I walk in. And if you remember, field of visions are with the wall detection. So if we turn on wall detections, as soon as the player touches that, the filter turns on, and then when you leave, and it works for all of them as you walk through them. Okay. So this is great and dandy, and we're going to show how to script this as well. But the issue that comes with this is, especially when you're adding or statements in a condition. Let's say that you wanted to add also that you want it to not take effect until an easy one is after a certain amount of time. So you would say, also, I want 1 second to pass before this condition could be true. So you would drag this up top. You would say, and this condition as well. But the issue is this after a certain amount of time only is attached to the left the left FOV condition. So in order to say also after a certain amount of time with this, and this, you would have to copy and paste this 3 more times. You have to bring this up ahead of each specific FOV, and then you would have to match them and make sure it was this and that, or this and that, or this and that, which this seemed to match pretty well actually. But still, you can see that this is going to be a little hard to read because you're like, okay, after a certain amount of time, is this the same? What if you wanted to change the time? Now you're changing all of this time. And so you can see where scripting could really come in handy in this situation. So let's script this exact same setup. So first thing we're going to need is we're going to need our Visual Studio Code here, or an editor of your choice, and our scripting guide. So in the editor, I'm going to click a new file. I'm going to go to my power template and Control A, copy all, and then Control V. And so now we have our power template. Here's our script start and our script end. Awesome. Okay, so we first off need to grab our self. So we're going to get our self, just first thing, power function, use get self. All right, so now we can move on and get the FOV condition. And so we're going to go to the guide, and we can do a couple methods. We could scroll down to script templates, and we can grab, right here is a link condition if we want an if statement that will run other code before it rings true. Or we can just grab one that will ring true instantly and just leave that link. Or we could Control F and type in discovered other object here. And here is the actual link condition that we want. So I'm just going to grab the insides of what we need. We don't need the wrapper, which is this part right here. We only need the args, the condition, and then the true or false here. So I'm going to grab them and plop them in and do a little bit of cleanup there. All right, so we know that these are the arguments. We can get rid of this AGT part, and we can do self, because the self we got up here, and the self is what's calling this check right here. So that's just something that we cached it right here, so we can use it right here. And so now we can start to find out what our viewport things are. So if we go to Pixel Game Maker, we can go to plugins and click show log. And here will pop up the show log. So then we can go back to objects, and we can go back to, let's see here. I'll just bring this in. and we'll go to this link right here. We can clear out the log, and then we can click discovered object. And this is for the left one. And we can see the settings that we need. So I'm just going to copy these and plug them in to this right here. So we can see that number 2 is referring to the left one. So now if we wanted to see which one was the right one here, we could go like this, clear this out, and click into this. And we could see that the right one is number 3. And then if we clear it out and click this one, we can see that down is number 4. And so we could guess that up is number 5, but I didn't clear that out. Up is number 5. All right. And so the reason why this might be sound a little weird, because why was left number 1 or number 2? And that is because before I made this tutorial, I had one already made. And so it is important to note that these lines right here will not necessarily be a 1, 2, 3, 4. It also goes with what have you made already and maybe deleted, and it might not remove the information until you save or something and then log in the next time. So do note that if you are trying to get these specific IDs, I would use the show log to get all those values before you kind of make a script out of it, just to be safe. All right, so we know that left is number 2 and we go all the way to 5. So we can actually delete all of these checks right here. And now we have just a single after time passes. But now we can add a execute script, which we're going to, which we still need to finish it up. But we do have enough to make this work because we are checking for 2. We're not checking for all of them right now, but we're going to change that. So for right now, I'm just going to Control A and Control C, copy that, paste that in there. And this should work. So if we were to go into this one, it doesn't work, that one doesn't work, that one doesn't work, but the left one, which we're checking for, should work. There we go. And when we exit and re-enter, it's going to take a second before it does it. So we'll exit and re-enter, and it took a little bit for it to react again because of this condition right here, after a certain amount of time passes. All right, so now on with the good stuff. Now we're going to have this execute script check for all 4 of the FOVs. And so you might be thinking, well, gosh, now we got to copy the args and this condition here, and we have to bring them down here, say that these are args 2, or we'll just say args 2, copy that right here. Then we have to rename this condition, so we would rename this to condition 2, and then finally you're thinking we would have to say if condition or condition 2 is met, then it will return true. Oh, and then we would change this to 3. And you would be correct. This is one way to go about it. Matter of fact, let's just show this. So we're going to copy, go into the execute script. Whoops, Control A, Control V. And now it should work for this one and this side. And you'll notice that it took a second. So when I went right here and I went over to the right side, it took 1 second because it's waiting this after a certain amount of time passes. All right, so that's great and all, but is it really worth having to copy paste this and have so many args in a script versus just doing it the way that we had it initially, where we could just have it in one place? And that is true. However, we can do it another way that we will not need to use this. So we could just delete this right here. We could delete this second condition, and we can delete this or check. And we can actually check this multiple times while filling in a different value for the viewport ID each time and see if one of those are true. All right, so let's start with that. So we're going to utilize an array to fill in this number, this value right here. And so the first thing we got to do is we got to create that array. So we're going to say FOV array, and we're going to say it's equal to an array, and we'll just give it some values. We'll say 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we can say that this is FOV left, right, down, and up, because that's the corresponding values if you want to just keep a note in here. And so then for the condition, actually, we're going to make what's called a for loop. And we're going to say with for loops, you just kind of start out with what value do you start at. So we're going to say I equals 0. So in this case, I is going to represent this array right here. So 0, the 0 value is 2, because in coding, 0 is the beginning kind of thing. And so 0, we're saying the first I is going to be 2. Then we're going to semicolon this. This is kind of like a shortcut loop, which is kind of nice. And we're going to say as long as I is less than FOV array dot length. So in this part right here, we're just saying that we're going to run this loop as long as I, which again, remember I is representing these items right here, as long as I is less than how many is in this array. So in this case, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to run this loop 4 times basically. And then the last thing that we do is we're going to say I plus plus. And what this is going to do, so now what we're doing is we know what I starts at the value 0, which is 2. It's going to run this loop as long as I is less than the array length. So as long as it's less than 4 in this case. And then every time it runs a loop, it's going to plus the I. So it's going to start at 0. Then when it runs the first loop, it's going to plus plus. So it's going to add 1 basically, which is going to jump up to 1, which is going to be the value 3. Then it's going to plus plus again and add to 4. And then it's going to add to 5. And then it's going to get out of the loop because I is not going to be less than the length anymore. All right, so then we're going to just curly bracket these. And then right here, we're going to grab all of this and just Control X and paste it into this for loop. So we're going to be checking, and actually we can actually remove the return false. The return false can actually be outside of the for loop, but the return true part we want to be in the for loop. And so what's going to happen is now we need to find where we want to put I. So which one do we want to check with the value of I? And obviously we know that this is the one that we needed the multiple checks. So we're just going to say I. And sorry, it's actually just not I. It's the I that's inside this FOV array. So we actually want FOV array, and then we're checking the array value of I. So I is going to be 0 at first. So we're going to say, we're going to check FOV array I, which is 0. So FOV array 0, which is 2. Then the next iteration, it's going to go over and it's going to check for FOV array 1 because it plussed, remember? And then it's going to be 3. And then it's going to plus again, be 4. Whoops, let me fix that. Then it's going to be 4. Then it's going to be 5. And so basically we went through all of these arguments 4 times, but we just did it with this one line of code up here. All right. And the cool thing is that if one of these are true, so it's going to search for this 4 times, but if one of them is true, it's going to return true no matter what. And with this, we can actually test this out. So let's Control A, go back to execute script, Control A, Control V. And now we have an after certain amount of time and an execute script in all of those 4 FOVs. So here's our first one, and then we exit. Here's our next one. And here's our third one. And then just to make sure the second's working, I'm going to go in there right away. And there we go. It's working. So you can see that we condensed, there was what, 8 lines right here into this script right here. And we were basically checking for all of those 4 lines in this one block of code right here. So that's pretty cool and handy. Now on the going out here, so you might be thinking, how do we get this check into a script if we don't have access to opposite value checks within scripts? And in this particular case, we do not have is not in FOV option right here. This is the only way to check for an opposite value. So how do we do that in a script? All right, so there is a way. And so let's go back to our scripts. We're just going to use this same setup. And the one thing that we're going to want is we're going to want a var that is going to be the leaving FOV array count, basically. And this is always going to be an empty array. So at the start, so this check is run every frame, right? So at the start of every frame, this array is going to be empty, meaning that there's going to be nothing in it. So then we're going to check and we're going to fill up this array as we need. And then as it gets full, then we're going to determine, hey, we're actually out of this array. So we do know that there is 4 basically checks that we have to do. And we do know that they're all ands. So you have to be out of left and out of right and out of up and out of down. So just by this right now, we can just say that as long as this leaving array count is less than 4, or then we're still in an FOV. So if it is greater than or equal to 4, then we know that we're out of the FOV. And how we can do that is by simply, we can keep this for loop, but we can bring this condition out. So we can just say, we can copy this, and we're going to bring this condition out. We're going to leave this condition as the condition because it is checking if we're in the field of vision. And so what we're going to do is that if we're not in the field of vision, we're going to add that exclamation point. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do leaving FOV array count dot push. And this is going to push, this is going to increase this from 0 and it's going to add a value in there. And so it's going to push for the first one if it's not true. And then if it's not true on the second one, it's going to push another value. And then if it's not true on the third one, it's going to push another value. And then if it's not true on the last one, it will push the last value. So then we can see that if there's basically 4 items in this array, then we know that we are not in an FOV because this check was not true. All right, so that's why we're leaving this blank, and then we're filling it, we're pushing into it every time that it's not true. And so now what we need is we need this condition right here to actually be if leaving, there we go. If the leaving FOV array count dot length is greater than or equal to 4, then we will return that it's true, because we now know that this was not true 4 times. And so now this link is true. And we can actually see this in action if we attack.log or agtk.log and we say the leaving, nope, not that one, the leaving FOV array dot length. We can actually log that into the runtime log, and we can Control A, copy. And here, I'm just going to skip these for now. And I'm going to do an execute script. So the execute script is the only thing that will run because I'm skipping these. And so here we have the log. Now the log's not showing anything about the length because we're not in this action yet. We're still in the no filter. So as I move up, and now that I'm in the filter here, you can see that it worked. And you can also see that it is spamming this number 3. And the reason why is because there are 3 FOVs that are not true. If you remember from this check, they're not true. And so it's adding an count. And so because the FOV is never equal to or greater than 4, it's not a true link. We're still inside at least one of these FOVs. Now, as soon as I leave, it turns off, and you can see it equaled 4, and then it left. And then we can go into this one, and now it's spamming 3. And now this one, or we got to wait a second, right? Because that's the part of the condition. And now it's spamming 3. And so here we go. We can get rid of all of these. And now we broke those scripts down into each one. Now, just to go one step further here, I want to just show that we can actually run something in this true condition right here. And so what we're going to do is, instead of running the filter and deleting the filter in the runtime action, we're going to apply it in the link as it's leaving. So we're going to I'm going to leave this up because I want the show log to grab my stuff, but we're going to go to the editor here. We're going to Control F and say apply object, or apply filter. Here we go. Apply filter effects on object and delete filter effects on object. So that's very easy. So here are our args. So I'm just going to grab this chunk right here, go to here. And since we only want this on the leaving out, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go like this and put that in there. Now this is actually on the leaving, because this is if leaving count is less. So actually we need the other one. So this is the delete filter right here. Okay, so let's grab the delete filter. We want this line too, because mainly this is all that we're looking for is the execute command. This is all that is nice to have copy pastable. So we're gonna redo that. Now, one thing to note is we could leave this as args. You'll notice that there's an args up here, but by the time it gets down here, it's going to be done using this args. So it doesn't matter that it's using a different args to do this. And so we could leave this, or we could say delete filter args, and we could just be a little more clean. And on this one, we would say self, because we've already cached the self right here. And so we could easily do this right here. The only thing now is that we need the remove bit and the duration. And the remove bit is it's just a long process to get these values. You can see that it is literally a 0 equals none, and then 4095 equals all. So in this case, I'm just going to use the 4095. That way I don't have to guess or see any, or try to find the pattern for just deleting the noise filter. So we're just going to say this, and we're going to say 0 on the duration. All right, so now I'm going to copy and paste this into this script now. And I'm going to delete the filter from right here. So we're going to apply it with the runtime action, but we're actually going to delete it through the link itself. All right, so we're going to apply it, and now we're going to leave, and it deleted it. So we deleted it through the leaving link. And so you could see that we could do the same thing in our execute script here. The only difference is that we would do it right here. This is where we would add the apply filter if we were going to do it on the link into the filter thing. So yeah, I hope that this helps clear some stuff up, show you how to use arrays and a for loop as you're looking for multiple checks and for checks that don't necessarily have opposite value associated with the script. And so yeah, if there's any questions, comments below, Steam forums, we'll get you figured out. And with that said, we'll see you at the next video.